Welcome to the Seller Roundtable e-commerce coaching and business strategies with Andy Arnott and Amy Wees.
Our challenges in Vietnam, I think, too, in the very beginning, kind of, is still like a lot more undeveloped in terms of like information of factories than China. With China, everybody just uses Alibaba. There's other services too, but Alibaba does what you need for the most part. In Vietnam, there's not an Alibaba equivalent, and Alibaba itself is in Vietnam, but the factories they have there is very small, and Vietnamese just don't trust Chinese, so they are hesitant to use it. So you have to be really proactive in finding factories, and this is something we learned early on. And so we have to use tons of different resources. We have to have our staff really chase factories. We've never had to chase a factory in China. We just say, hey, this is what we're buying. Factories trip over to come to us. Vietnam, you really have to follow up and call them and really kind of talk to them a lot and really convince them to actually take the order, which can be labor intensive for each project. Other than that, like we said, we have challenges just finding a lot of factories for a lot of items. So we've been there long enough that we know pretty well off the bat what we can and can't make, but it has been challenging a lot of times explaining to people that you can't make this or that in Vietnam. But our success in Vietnam, we've done tons of projects successfully. Like we've done hiking backpacks, luggages, flat pack furniture, stainless steel kitchen, like sinks and faucets and whatnot, shower heads. I'm trying to think of what all active projects we have now. Let me pull up my folder. So we've had tons of success and it's been booming. So once we kind of figure out what we can and can't do, we've gotten pretty good at that. A lot of clothing, sportswear, sports bras, yoga pants. We can go on, but it's really, once you actually get that infrastructure in place, it really took us a while to really figure out, I would say almost a year to really figure out how to do sourcing in Vietnam. But once we got that, it's really kind of started moving pretty well. So we were talking earlier, what products can be made in Vietnam? So some of the big ones, furniture, clothing, garments, and textiles, footwear. Vietnam makes over 2 billion pairs of shoes a year, by the way. So Nike, Adidas, all of those companies, I'm trying to think of shoe wear company that doesn't have a presence in Vietnam. Plastic goods, anything with injection molding is good. Rubber goods, seafood. This is Vietnam's second largest exporter of seafood in the world, although we can't source seafood ourselves, so don't ask. Packaging, so we've done packaging of pretty much all kinds for clients. And we're trying to really kind of figure out a way. Sometime next year, I want to kind of create my own packaging for clients. I think clients would love that. Wooden goods of any kind, like we're doing some record holders right now. They're just small, simple wooden goods. Bamboo goods as well. They're really good at bamboo goods. Metal products, kind of handle any type of metal products, like from sheet metal to metal picnic tables and overhangs. We work with a lot of corporate clients for metal products. We do some HVAC systems, not the air conditioning themselves, but the tubing. Electronics, it's actually hard to source OEM electronics in Vietnam, especially compared to China. But for instance, Galaxy makes their entire line of, Samsung makes their entire Galaxy line of phones in Vietnam. LG makes their TVs in Vietnam. Canon makes their cameras in Vietnam. Apple's looking at starting a huge factory there that's going to employ like 100,000 make iPhones there. That's might go and happen next year, might not, who knows. Construction materials, done this for more corporate clients, but we've done rebar and some concrete and some lime. Consumer goods, we do a lot of plush toys, for instance, and coffee. Vietnam's the second largest exporter of coffee by volume. Well, those mainly Robusta, not the good Arabica. So brands made in Vietnam, pretty much most brands do it. Like Target has a huge presence there, Patagonia, North Face, Nike, IKEA, mentioned Samsung Galaxy phones. We work at the IKEA factory. One of the IKEA factories, they have several that just comically massive. And actually some of these furniture factories, if you ever go to them, are some of the biggest factories I've ever been. Like take a golf cart through and they're basically 12 billion is the size of an NBA. It's Coliseum each. And it's just comical. Like they handle hotel furniture, for instance, and you can do like 600 rooms a week from them. So it's pretty amazing what you can do. Most furniture brands make their, I mentioned West Elm, for instance, work with one of their factories. And so when we're talking about Alibaba, that doesn't really have a presence in Vietnam. It does exist, but it's not that good. There's a few other resources. Global Sources is pretty decent. Vietnam Export, V-Town, Vietnam is interesting because it's actually Japanese owned. And so they have a huge database of factories that are owned by Japanese, but do manufacturing in Vietnam. So a lot of clients kind of have expectations of quality. So this is actually very good for finding high quality manufacturers. One thing too with just Vietnam, none of these platforms are great for contacting factories through. So what we usually do is just get the name of factories and then try to find their contact details, emails, and phone numbers, etc., elsewhere, and then contact them that way. So I find that this actually has a much higher response rate. So you kind of really got to just kind of start, get the names, get the contacts details, and then kind of do that way. It's kind of extra steps, and you can't just like post an RFQ like you can on Alibaba and let them come to you. But it's good. Another one too is trade associations. There are several active trade associations in Vietnam that are pretty good about publishing their members. So if anybody's looking for making clothing or textiles, there's the Vietnam Textile and Apparel Association. And if you download these slides, I'll give you a link at the end of this show. These are all hyperlinks, so you can just click through and go straight to their websites. There's the Vietnam Footwear, Leather, and Handbag Association. So we work with a lot of custom shoe manufacturers like leather shoes and do some leather briefcases as well and some roll behind baggage. And so you can just kind of ask them to give you a members list, Steel Association. And the last one, the Handicraft Wood Association of Ho Chi Minh City. There's actually a second one in Hanoi and doesn't have a name, but this is the association that oversees furniture manufacturing. So if you're looking at doing that, that's the one you want to go to. Then trade shows. The closest two to the Canton Fair that are just general are the Vietnam International Trade Fair and Vietnam Expo. One's held in Hanoi and one in Ho Chi Minh City. And again, give you the dates. The Vietnam International Furniture and Home Accessories. This is held in March. Try to go to this one every year. Vietnam International Textile and Apparel Accessories. This trade show that has all the clothing manufacturers, footwear and leather. I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
And
fabric
Jim,
garments.
quick question
Yeah,
about this. So, I see all of these great resources where people can source from and as well as trade shows that they can attend. Well, there's a reason people go as a group because they're like, I've never been to Vietnam before. I've never been to China. I've never been to India. I mean, do you guys offer will you meet a client at the trade show and help them find
we
their
can
way
meet them at the
around?
trade show.
Okay,
yeah, we've done
so
that
if
before
somebody's
in the past.
interested in sourcing from Vietnam and kind of checking out some of these trade shows, they could reach out to your company and you guys might be able to meet them and at least kind of show them around and give them the lay of the land. Okay, cool.
Yeah, one thing too with trade shows, I think you're probably used to Chinese trade shows that are comically huge, especially like the Canton Fair. I think people might be a little bit underwhelmed at the size of the trade shows in Vietnam. I mean, they're good, but you can knock out a trade show in half a day, honestly.
So what would be the reason then to go to a trade show in Vietnam? If it can be like knocked out in a half a day, what's the reason for going there? And what do you suggest? Why should people visit Vietnam and what would an itinerary look like?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, just in terms of the trade shows, if you're presenting at a trade show of anybody, they're open to doing business. We work with a lot of factories that are, or not work with them, but we contact a lot of factories and they're at capacity or not taking on new clients. So yeah, anyone that sets up at a trade show is open for business. You can actually meet them there. You can go through, meet several different factories and potential suppliers and kind of knock out several in a day. We do a lot of research for clients. And so most of the time when they visit, most of our clients, we go through and do our normal sourcing phase and then get as many contacts of factories that want to meet with them. And then we arrange the meetings directly at the factories. So if they want to do that and kind of combine that with the trade show, I think that would be a pretty solid itinerary. We had a client not too long ago that went to the footwear one that was doing shoes. And then we arranged a few other visits. He went to the shoe one actually on his own for the record, but then we arranged several visits with shoe factories during that same visit, and then you kind of saw some factories directly that way too.
Got it.
And so Chambers of Commerce. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. So that makes sense.
No, go ahead.
I think it's really important. In the beginning when you're just thinking about sourcing, I think it's good to reach out to someone like you and hear presentations like this. But I think there is just there's no as you're growing, there's really no substitute for going and actually seeing that factory and getting an understanding of where your products are being made, how they're being made, and building that relationship, because that is what is going to grow you long term. So I love that you've kind of given an idea of how to actually go and visit, because I feel it's really important. And I mean, I don't know how you see it, but
No, I totally agree.
Important?
No, I think it's very important to visit factories, because I mean, once you actually get to the point where you can visit a factory, it's important to build that relationship, because it's something that you want to do long term and don't want to just trust somebody else to handle it for you. And so, yeah, it's definitely something you want to visit and kind of get to know the culture, get to know where your product's getting made, how it's getting made, and then kind of figure out from there. Because a lot of people will visit and actually not understand the full manufacturing process, and then kind of realize what they can and can't do, and then actually add features or take away features based on what they've seen, just based on costing or what their clients want.
I'm curious what kind of products you have helped source most successfully from Vietnam, as well as, for newer sellers that are wanting to kind of source in smaller quantities. I know you covered this a little bit in your slideshow, but what would you suggest for someone just wanting to get started? What products should they maybe, do you feel pretty good about sourcing a smaller quantity of? And what products do you feel like, oh no, it's probably later?
Yeah, I think in terms of smaller quantities, anything cut and sew is pretty easy to do. There's tons of little home factories that can do small quantities of products. And so, like we said, we do like custom suits. That was pretty easy to find a supplier for. And we started all with small quantity. We do like some nicer leather handbags that was smaller quantity. And then, yeah, anything clothing wise is good. Anything backpack wise. We work with a handful of wooden manufacturers too that can handle smaller quantities that are kind of custom made. We're starting a new project with a nice little hand cut bowls, the really nice burl ones, for instance. And that's going to be a smaller quantity order to start with. And I think that one will actually scale up well.
Got it. I think that's helpful for people to understand. And so you were mentioning, so we covered trade shows, and you were mentioning your last slide here, which was the Chambers of Commerce. Correct.
Yeah. So Vietnam Chamber of Commerce and Industry is kind of the catch-all chamber of commerce for all of Vietnam. They publish they have a newsletter, news website, so you can actually keep up to date with like the market conditions in Vietnam, kind of up to date with manufacturing numbers. And then they also do matchmaking services. You can get a list of their members. The American Chamber of Commerce also does matchmaking services, so you can actually contact them directly, and they actually are pretty decent at getting you in touch with Vietnam manufacturers. They kind of have their preferred list, and it's kind of a limited list, but for people that are just starting out, it's a good resource. And I also mentioned South Korea and Japan. I stated earlier that they have a free trade agreement with Vietnam. So there are tons of South Korean and Japanese owned factories in Vietnam. Also Taiwan, I should have mentioned Taiwan. And so those chambers of commerce are good about getting in touch with factories that are owned by those countries in Vietnam. So you can actually kind of work with them too. Yeah. So actually kind of cover visiting Vietnam in the last question. I had that slide already. Yeah, do you need to visit? I think it's good. I think it's good just visit. I just like visiting Vietnam. I love it. It's kind of one of these countries that just hits you in the face because it's 100 miles per hour at all times. I'm sure you've seen videos of just traffic there. It's crazy with thousands, millions of scooters. I personally have a scooter in Vietnam. I love it. But the food's great. It's some of the best food in the world too. So
that's what I was going to ask about.
Yeah.
I'm a total food nerd. I love trying different food from all around. And so what's your favorite thing? I know we're taking it off topic for a second. What's your favorite food in Vietnam?
I love bun thich nung or just Vietnamese barbecues. I have some really good barbecues, and they have some places, restaurants that are set up is just get all the beer you want. And then they have like hundreds of little food items, like everything from okra to chicken feet to
what's the average cost of a meal like that? Like can you eat like a king for nothing?
I eat like a king. Like I go to these barbecue places and just stuff my face, get beers, and I'm paying like less than $10. If I get like a bowl of pho or bun thich nung or whatever, it's going to be like $1 or $2.
Amazing. That's how China
Yeah.
is too. You know, it's like
Oh, I
so
know.
cheap to travel around and to eat and
Oh, I
it's
gained
like,
so much weight, especially in China, because there's more fried food in China.
oh yeah, yeah, definitely. And so
Which
all the
Vietnam's
food's
actually
so
pretty
delicious.
healthy for what you get. Yeah,
Okay. All
because yeah, you
right.
get like coconut for 50 cents,
So
then a
what
bowl of
about like
pho, which is
if
shockingly
you
healthy.
visit there, are there hotels and stuff to stay at? And what are the costs of
Yeah,
those?
it
Are there
depends
are
on
there
where you stay.
Western hotels to stay
Yeah,
in?
most of my clients stay in either the Marriott or the Le Meridian, which are pretty Western business hotels. That are like 100, $200 a night. There's like Sheratons, Hiltons, Hyatts. So most of them stay at that. I always try to encourage them to stay more local places. I have a neighborhood. I live in Thaudin, which is a little outside the main part of the city, and there's like some really nice small villas that are right on the water that I've been trying to convince clients to stay at, but they never do.
So, you know, if we all want to come
Yeah.
visit you, Jim, if we want to organize a seller roundtable trip to
Yeah.
Vietnam and come and visit
Mhm.
you, when's the best time to come visit? And yeah, what's going on at that time?
Yeah. I mean, just in pretty much the only time you shouldn't visit is during Tet, which is the same time as Chinese New Year, because the whole country shuts down for like a month, starting January 20th. So just a heads up for clients who are looking at Vietnam, it's going to be shut down during that time. Other than that, the weather's pretty consistent all year round. It's pretty much hot 88 degrees average almost consistently throughout the year. So there's not really one best time. There is a rainy season, kind of around nowish actually, and then another in like during the summer. But I've gotten used to the rain, so
All right, we're gonna
yeah,
we're gonna have to reach out to you and arrange a trip. So get
sounds good.
ready.
All right,
We're
perfect.
coming to visit. All right, Jim, what else you got for us?
All right. Let's see. Oh yeah, what can I expect from visiting a factory? In terms of actual production of the factories, they're pretty comparable to China. For the most part, they even have like the same machinery and equipment. Like we've had several clients who are moving the production from China to Vietnam, and they're blown away because it's literally the exact same piece of machinery made by the same German or South Korean or whatever company. And so it's oftentimes pretty similar. We've also seen crappy factories and good factories in both countries. I think the main thing is how the visits go. I mentioned Guangxi in China. I'm sure many of your viewers are kind of know what that is. It's much more casual. When people visit factories, it's pretty much you go straight in, you kind of have a brief little chit chat, maybe have some tea, and then it's more or less straight to numbers. And then you kind of have a tour of the factory. And like I said, it does off-put a lot of our clients who are kind of expecting the whole back and forth relationship, like go out to lunch and then not even talk business till the second meeting type thing. But relationships do matter. And it's one of these things, like I said, the relationships are kind of formed slowly on the back end. Like once you actually start doing business, then they come more receptive, kind of get more friendly, and actually do get to know them later on. It's just not forward. It's not the first thing they do. So we've had a ton of great relationship with factories, but it's just something you kind of start to do after you get to know them, kind of go to karaoke and do whatnot with them later. But after you kind of done a business deal instead of before. But it's just kind of something different. So it's kind of something you kind of need to keep in mind. It's a lot more direct, which helps too. You just kind of give them numbers and they give it back. So that's one thing that kind of a lot of people need to kind of understand about Vietnam. Other than that, oops, oh no, I had to pull it up. All right, let me go to the last slide. I actually have set up a folder on Google Drive on my website, cosmosourcing.com/seller roundtable. And I'll have the slides and an ebook. I have a Vietnam sourcing ebook that they can download. So this is kind of the end of this presentation. So any questions?
Perfect. Thanks, Jim.
Yeah.
Really appreciate that. Yeah, guys. Those of you who are joining us on the live Zoom meeting, please drop your questions in the list here. As you guys know, we normally don't stream live on all channels. We are today. But if you want to jump in and be able to ask, our guests like Jim questions, make sure you join us live. But anybody watching today, if you got any questions for Jim, now's the time. Amy, did you have any more questions?
No, I do not. I thank Jim so much. I got to ask even more questions about weird food in Vietnam, and I'm going to add it to my travel list. Jim he thinks I'm joking around. I'm coming to
Oh, no,
Vietnam.
come to-
I'm waiting, Amy. I'm waiting for the Vietnam sourcing experience.
Yes.
I know. I probably need to set it up. Yeah, that's some interest.
TVSE.
'Cause I was talking to
TVSE.
Megla about it too.
Yes. I
Yeah,
love
It's
it.
going to be a little bit different, but yeah, it's something I probably should get on that actually.
You gotta get on it, Jim.
So, yeah.
Let's do it. We're
So I think
excited.
some
Yeah, I was
people
gonna say
have
maybe Amy, maybe you and Jim need to partner on that.
Amy does not need
Yeah.
another business. I'm gonna leave
Right.
that up to Jim. But
right.
I'm
All right.
totally down with coming and visiting Jim though. That would be fun.
All right,
There
perfect.
you go.
We can plan
Yeah.
an SRT field trip.
Yeah, you can be
so-
a mentor maybe.
Perfect.
So thank you, Jim, so much for your time. I know everybody
problem.
got a lot of value out of all of the things that you taught us about sourcing from Vietnam. Listeners, reach out to Jim. We're going to have his
Yeah.
information in the show notes. And you can go to cosmosourcing.com/seller roundtable and get Jim's great information from
Mhm.
from this presentation. And just thank you so much, Jim. We really appreciate
Great.
it.
Oh, thank you. All right, perfect. So,
All right, Jim.
Yeah.
Take care. Thank you again, and yeah, really appreciate all that info. And very few guests give it in that nice, easy packaged form where they can just go
Yeah.
and download it. So
Kinda
thanks
had the
again for that.
presentation
Really
already.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
And so everybody, if as you know, if you're not subscribed to the podcast, please go ahead and do that. Hit the subscribe button. Make sure that you guys rate, review, share with your friends. We really, really appreciate that, guys, as you know. And if you want to join us live, sellerroundtable.com/SRT. And as usual, Amy and I are just blown away by how much support you guys have been giving us. And please reach out to us if you guys have any more questions, topics, guests, things you want us to cover. We love hearing from you guys. So thanks again. Today, if you guys are watching the stream, we're going to jump off, but then we're going to jump right back on and give you guys a quick demo of our new software, Rebate Jet. So if you guys want to stay tuned for that, stay on board. If not, we will see you in about 5 minutes. We're going to do just a tiny extra innings here, like we always do with the podcast, and then we're going to jump back on. We'll see you guys later.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Thanks again, everybody, for having me.
Thanks for tuning in. Join us every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for live Q&A and bonus content after the recording at sellerroundtable.com. Sponsored by the ultimate software tool for Amazon sales and growth, sellerseo.com and amazingathome.com.